Welcome, everyone, to the Minions of the Zoo. It's Tuesday. I'm your keeper, Skep, Tock, and with me I have minions Prospero.
Hello.
Geodz.
Yep.
And the Harry Channel.
Good evening.
And I hope you're all well. I know you've got your noses glued to the tube watching the returns from the Virginia elections. Prospero, how was your day today?
It was okay. It was grizzly weather, just icky. Very chilly rain, which was uncomfortable. It was about roughly a 20-degree temperature shift in a day or two. Too damp and drizzly and bleh. But otherwise,
I remember from Virginia descending into the dismalness of its fall.
Cloudy all the goddamn time. I mean, this place is cloudy as hell. And then the sun will come out at sunset just as a big fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of typical fall winter weather.
Yeah.
But other than that, my day was fine. How was yours?
Oh, I had a pretty good day. Still recovering from the partying all weekend, celebrating my dad's 94th birthday down in San Antonio. It was an interesting time. There were parts of it that were good, even. But we'll kind of leave it at that. Anyway, Geodz, how's your day, man?
It's been good. I've basically mostly been relaxing because I'm going to be prepping for some stuff tomorrow, and we'll see how it goes. So,
okay, is it good stuff?
Yes.
All right. Well, I hope it goes well and is extra good. Harry, how about you? What did you do today? Anything fun?
Oh gosh, I had the most fun. I, as a contractor and a subcontractor, all the contracting, I had the rare pleasure of doing I don't know if it's every 6 months or every year. One of my customers will say, "Oh, you have to take this security training."
Oh,
and,
yes.
Yeah, so they go through all of this sort of security 101 stuff where they talk about passwords and not letting people who try to get in behind you in the door without swiping their ID card and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, I've written this stuff. Mm-hmm. So the necessary repetition that they're trying to use to drill this into my head just kind of feels like I'm just being kicked in the face a lot.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understand from their point of view, they look at it as there's an attorney for the other side, whatever the other side is, and says, did you give all of your subcontractors and your contractors security training as required by state regulation clutch every 6 months? Can you certify that? No, we can't. Harry said he knew too much about it, so we didn't train him. Yeah. Aha, Your Honor. And
Harry tried to opt out by reason of competence.
Exactly. And courts of law do not recognize that sort of thing.
Yeah, I did send them a note with the 2 mistakes I found in their training. Just, you're welcome.
Just being helpful.
Just being helpful.
Not they being had some really stupid things.
But I did enjoy the new clip art that they used. I particularly liked the woman who was like walking with the assistance of braces, who held up one of them to wave at me and tell me I did a good job when I answered something. And I was thinking, oh, sweetie, don't destabilize yourself just to give me a high five.
Yeah.
We don't want you pitching over.
So, oh man, those
terrible.
Those programmed instruction things. I've had a million of them too. You know that I have.
Oh, I'm sure you have.
It just they're so cloying, and exactly, you got the answer right.
Yay! And there's little sound effects and virtual confetti that falls. It's pretty exciting. And gosh, it's beautiful because the thing I got extra modules because they gave me the developer stuff too. To their credit, actually, the one for application developers wasn't entirely terrible. It just shocked the hell out of me. But most of them were, they sort of grow up over time. Like, here's Kevin Mitnick. He's 8,000 years old now, and he's going to tell you about this security thing. So Kevin Mitnick is a famous hacker.
Yeah, I was going to say, the Kevin Mitnick.
The Kevin Mitnick. He's the chief hacking officer of this security company. I kid you not. So the Kevin Mitnick,
emeritus,
yes, gave this thing. But the beautiful thing was, the example that he gave was a hole in Mac OS, where if you accepted a calendar invite from people, they could just randomly have files from your system mailed to an address.
Nice.
So it turned out you could accept an invitation to a meeting, and then your entire keychain would be sent over. And then all you had to do was crack the keychain, and you'd have all of that person's username, passwords, logins. It was pretty sweet, but that was patched like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So this is the joy of this security training, because I know I'm supposed to be like, oh, really? That's pretty scary. I guess I better be thankful I'm getting this training. Whereas I'm going, damn it, that was patched 5 years ago, you idiots. Give me a real reason to be afraid.
Yeah.
Not a 5-year-old reason to be afraid that's been fixed.
Hmm.
That was my day.
Okay, so that was your day. Well, it's been an interesting day nationally. I suppose we should just go into what's going on in Virginia
And New Jersey.
Well, in New Jersey and New York City, for that matter. The races there are really, everyone seems to think that it's going to give us a clue for what's going to happen next year in the congressional races, and then 2 years later in the presidential, that have Republicans have Democrats pissed off the country enough to where enough people are sick of their nonsense, and they're going to, for the also insane but marginally less insane Republicans, or are they just going to stick with the assholes they know and continue, just keep doubling down until the money isn't worth anything anymore?
These off-year elections, like New Jersey and Virginia, might tell you more about 2022 than I don't think they tell you much about 2024. That's far too far away from now.
Yeah, people are just looking for tea leaves. They're looking for hints. I agree. It's very hard to predict something that's 3 years away. But next year, it might actually be a little bit of an indicator for how people are thinking and what the polls have to work with in the interim.
Yeah, if Jack Posobiec's source is accurate, Pelosi has made rumblings about not running again.
Yeah. I don't think she's going to run again.
Because she doesn't want to be linked to failure.
Yeah.
So you're saying to put away all the Norse runic scrying tools until later?
Yes.
Well, we have nothing better to do. So
yeah, I know.
It makes for it's a lot of good red meat for discussion. So we can,
it is.
But does it mean anything? No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it is. It's because right now.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say right now, none of the numbers that are in mean anything.
Yeah.
Post-millennial, town hall, these places are calling the Virginia gubernatorial election. And I'm like, what didn't you learn from last year?
Yeah.
What didn't you learn from other times you've been caught with your pants down?
What's the expected electorate number of voters in Virginia? How many people do they expect to vote, roughly?
Oh, geez.
It's probably on the order of 4 million, isn't it?
I haven't heard the numbers.
I think it's like 4.5 million. Somehow that number is sticking in me. And so far, they've counted 3 million votes, basically, if you don't count the impact that Princess Blanding, the Libertarian, is having with 20,000 votes.
The thing is, based on percentage that wouldn't point to 4 million voting, but reports are that the voting.
No. This was from another source.
No. I understand.
Expected the votes to be cast to be in the 4 to 5 million range.
Yeah, I don't know how many registered.
It was on the internet.
Yeah, I don't know how many registered voters there are. we're at, like you said, we're at 3 million.
Mm-hmm.
And the population is 8 million. How many of those are registered to vote? I don't know. Now, there are reports coming in that rural voting in Virginia is up 10 to 15% over last year. And that would make sense.
Okay, the total voting turnout that some of the top statisticians are predicting this year is 4,486,821, which that's based on a percentage of what turned out in previous elections. I think it might even be higher than that, but they're saying 4.5 million, and they actually have the total number of registered voters in Virginia, and this is from Virginia Department of Elections, is 5.9 million. But they only expect about 75% of them to vote.
So they're saying, wow, that's interesting, because
there you go.
That's 75% of the state population.
Yeah.
Of
course, they don't say how many of those are phony, ballots that are
duplicate,
that have just been pre-printed,
duplicate
registrations
registrations that they haven't cleaned up stuff from the last time, and because I'll be moving in the spring. I will move within enough time to register to vote where I'm going to be. But a lot of people, because they know they have 6 months.
Make sure you vote in both places.
Yeah, right.
No. So that you can be
counted as much as I would have happily filled out 10 or 20 or 1,000 ballots myself today, I would not do that.
Yeah. Prospero's voting ballot printer goes burr.
My pen goes burr. It's because we.
So did you vote?
Yes, most definitely.
Did you vote? How long did it take you?
I walked in, I gave my name, I got my ballot, I voted, and I was out, and it was probably no more than 5 minutes.
So you're not voting in Chesterfield?
No, I was voting in the city of Richmond. Pray God, praise Jesus for the last
I'm setting
time.
you up so you can tell that story.
Yes, last time. But in Chesterfield County, they ran out of ballots.
Say that again slower so everybody can understand.
In Chesterfield County, at one of their precincts, and my understanding is that it wasn't only in Chesterfield County, they ran out of ballots. And then when they sent the replacement ballots,
my life is full.
They sent the wrong ones.
Of course.
Not once, my friends, but twice. 2 times the Burkina Faso's working for the fucking election board sent because I'm not allowed to say the R word, sent the wrong goddamn ballots.
God, are you using Burkina Faso as a substitute for the R word? Nice.
It works.
Yeah.
Statistically speaking, it works. And that's not hate speech, it's statistics.
Yeah. Follow the science, people.
Yeah, follow the science. You say the science is spoken, the science is spoken.
Yeah. IQ tests don't lie.
65 score on one of those puppies puts you in the R category. But apparently we've got a lot of geniuses working at the at the Virginia election board, that they couldn't get the right goddamn ballots to precincts or get the right number of ballots. I mean, look at how many registered voters you have. Send that many ballots plus 1,000 for despoiled ballots, because you're going to have them. and you're going to have the machine will eat one, and you'll have to go and stop and take that machine offline and go fill in a provisional.
No,
to
you know
to
what?
that
You're
person.
wrong. You're wrong about the average IQ in Burkina Faso. It's not 65.
Oh,
It shares the number 38 position with Angola, Chad, Djibouti, Somalia, and Swaziland on the world ranking list with an IQ average of, drumroll please, 68.
oh, I'm sorry. That's still
Not special.
no.
65 is special.
So this is educable.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. These people are physicists basically.
Oh, okay, good. I'm glad to know that's it's gone up. My guess it has gone up obviously because in the original data,
Mm-hmm.
if I recall, it was at 65. So if it's gone up 3 notches, I would credit massively improved nutrition
No,
because that's about the only thing that's changed.
No, I would credit the UN jacking with the numbers probably.
That's okay because we all know that Asia uniformly comes in higher than everybody else because they only report the good scores.
Yeah.
And I'd say that's probably what happened there. Most of those global IQ datas they cull the data, and they report only their higher percentiles, which is charming. Anyway, regardless, these people are worries since they sent the wrong ballots. And my understanding is, I don't have proof of this because I wasn't there on the ground, is that it wasn't merely this location. I don't know for sure. Now, Chesterfield County voted for Biden barely, which was a big difference in how Chesterfield had normally voted. It used to be a very, very reliable red. That only made it a slight shade of purple, though, because the margin was very, very narrow. Generally speaking, it's a Republican county.
Mm.
I don't know whether the problems were restricted to Republican-leaning counties or whether they occurred across the board. I don't know. Not that I would impugn the integrity of anyone working for any election board anywhere. That even includes Maricopa County at all. The best and the brightest don't end up in government jobs. Just saying.
It's not wrong. You are not wrong.
Especially local government jobs. But yeah, this is too tight for comfort. It's about 93% reporting now.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
is that 93% reporting? I need to look at that thing you sent.
Real Clear Politics now has it listed at 93, 92, 93, 91. You know, that they're hopping around all over the place. My understanding, Monkey said Fairfax was 100% in. Then I saw another tweet saying that, not from Monkey, but Fairfax had backed down and said, no, we're not at 100% because, of course, they found some ballots probably shoved up the ass somewhere. Because this is too complicated. I used to work the elections in the city.
Yeah.
We had the machines where you threw the little switch and it did a little thing.
Yeah.
And then you went whoosh with the lever down at the bottom and boom, it opened the curtain.
Yeah.
When you pushed that lever open, the curtain closed and you were in there and you threw your switches for who you wanted to vote for. And then they registered when that curtain
was
opened
too hard
up.
for the Burkina Faso crowd.
And you know what happened?
Mm.
We were out of there no later than 9 o'clock, even on the busiest election, and our polls closed at 7. Now it is midnight, and we have places that have not reported 100% yet.
We're seeing 51 to 48 with 93% reporting. Just doing a little bit of head math here.
Yeah, Richmond Channel 12 is saying 94%, and it's still the gap is still holding. The lead is still
Channel
holding.
12 has shifted to 94 now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
As of 8:47 p.m. Pacific time.
Okay.
They're going to have to. what I would like to see actually is the Fairfax County come in and say we got some absentee votes and it's 81 million. We
Yeah.
just ran the same program as we ran the other day.
That would be awesome.
We didn't change any of the code because those guys quit. So we just ran the program again. Is that okay? It's science, right? Sorry.
They still haven't called the House.
Harry, I bet Harry knows what I'm talking about.
I'm just wondering at which point a jump discontinuity is going to kick into the graph.
Yeah. What are their standard deviations this time?
It's not a function anymore. There is no standard deviation.
We don't have in the House in the House races, in our House of Delegates races, in my district, they only have 86% reporting. I mean, stop it, you assholes.
So are they allowing late ballots to be delivered? I mean, are we? No, but seriously, in terms of the mail, are they going to be reporting 3 days later that things dribbled in with an appropriate postmark?
Yeah, they were supposed to have all that stuff tallied ahead of time.
Well, but if it was postmarked today, does it have to be postmarked?
I think
today
they had
or
a. No,
delivered
I'm
today?
pretty sure they had a cutoff time, and it had to be delivered today.
Oh, really? That's entirely too
Let me check
sensible.
Virginia mail-in.
I would
That
be
doesn't
surprised
seem
if they
possible.
haven't
Hold
fortified it
on.
to allow for ballots to trickle in.
All right. Prospero's checking for us. What the deal is here.
Judge rules Virginia's late election law changes for mail-in ballots were illegal.
Good.
Virginia's circuit court judge ruled that the state's last-minute changes to election law allowing mail-in ballots to arrive late. Now this was from.
What does Governor Blackface say?
Yeah, he's already rented the van, is what he says.
Now that was back before the 2020 election. If they were allowed late without a postmark, and that they would be illegal. So they've got to be on time, and the mail-in ballot return mail. Shit, get out of my way. Stupid pop-up. Mail-in ballots, Virginia rules.
I just think it would be cool to have a governor named Princess.
I think it would be cool to have a governor who's actually a libertarian.
Yeah, a libertarian candidate who's actually a libertarian and not a fucking communist. Yeah, this still says 93% reporting.
Yeah, I can't stand the fact that it's hung up like this. It just makes me crazy.
You might want to do a reload. I know it's supposed to refresh, but
Okay, I just reloaded. It came up 94%. So
there you go.
that's exactly what we were thinking exactly the same thing, Harry.
Yeah. So we're still holding at 51 to 48, which is a surprise for me. Now, this is the districts reporting, right? Not the total votes.
Precincts reporting, yeah.
Precincts reporting. So there may be uncounted votes in those precincts.
There shouldn't.
Or did they only report when they've reached 100%?
Yes, that's my understanding is that they have to get to 100% before they go into this total.
Okay. Well, looking down ticket on a number of these, you're seeing a number of Republicans doing pretty well. I mean, there's still some Democrats, obviously, that have got some of these districts lined up. But I don't know what the delta is in terms of seats getting flipped, Republican or Democrat.
Yeah, I don't either.
But right now we're seeing lieutenant governor's race with a 51 to 49 with Winsome Sears. You have some great names.
Thank you.
Yeah. You've got Winsome Sears, and Attorney General is still ahead for the Republican as well. And a number of House seats are going Republican.
The Democrat nominee for lieutenant governor is pretty solid name too, Hala Ayala.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's something else.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Harry. What were you going to say?
Well, you got some real doozies in here about Lamont Bagby, the Democrat.
Yeah,
what the hell, Lamont Bagby?
I know.
Yeah.
Doesn't it sound like an old radio announcer's name? This is
Sounds like a
Lamont
piano.
Bagby.
Well, I think he actually has enough white pants to make it to Labor Day every year. He's just got them all laid out with a different set of topsiders or something. That's just a very inbred sounding name. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is. Lamont.
Uh,
Lamont Cranston.
Bagby. Linwood Blizzard.
I
the
like
hell?
that. I like that your description is an inbred name. That's the
Yeah.
Blakely Lockhart,
Yeah.
private detective.
Yeah.
there you go.
So there you go. Yeah, it's interesting names, and that's yeah. We give you the hot topics here on Means the Zoo. We make fun of the names of the candidates because we can.
Because we're children, basically.
Because we're children with a TV show. Fuck you.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. Princess Blanding, though, God, that is just an awesome name for a communist who isn't a libertarian, running with the full force of the mighty Libertarian Party behind her.
It says she's an independent. Is that?
Oh, I thought she was a libertarian.
No, that's not a lowercase L. I think that's an
I
uppercase I.
You know what? You're right. I think you're right. Okay, so that's a good thing. I was afraid she was running as.
That's a bit of a relief, actually.
Yeah, it is. So she's just a crazy lady siphoning votes away from Terry McAuliffe. That's a good thing.
Mhm.
She's a Republican, basically, if you think about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, so far we're at 95% now, and it's still looking pretty good. But I don't want to take anything for granted. So what do we know about this new guy? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, even when it's 100%, you know that a bunch of late votes are going to come in, and a judge will allow them in, and it'll be 81 million votes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll be plenty to elect Terry McAuliffe. I still believe this thing is going to be fixed, and you'll see it happen.
You mean
in the next few
fortified?
days.
For maximum, fortified for maximum democracy.
Yes,
Yes.
We don't
and
use
sanitized for your protection.
Yeah, we don't use the F word. We only use the fortified word.
All right, the fortified word is it's a fortified, free, and fair election.
Yeah, let's get voting. So what do we know about this the new gentleman who's going to ruin New York City?
That's actually a really good point.
Because I honestly don't know very much. So this is a question, not a setup.
Well, what do we know about the New York City race? NYC race.
Well, we know Republican is not going to win.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Adams appears to win. He's the second
Adams
melanated
is elected
individual.
mayor.
Yeah, he's the second melanated mayor of New York City. Like I care about his skin color. It says he's a retired New York City Police Department captain who embraced a public safety message. Will be the second black mayor in the city's history after the late David Dinkins. So far, this doesn't sound terrible at all.
No, this doesn't sound bad at all. Let's see. You can't read.
He's actually a much more positive-looking candidate than.
Adams beats Sliwa in NYC mayoral race to replace DeFuckface.
Slee was one of those people that a lot of people have respect for because of all of the decades of work that he's put in trying to do something decent. I know people have problems with excuse me. What's the something angels?
Guardian Angels.
The Guardian
Angels, yeah.
Yeah, so they were out with volunteers patrolling subways and trying to clean up stuff before New York kind of got a handle on things. So he's sort of a sentimental person that some people wanted to see run, but realistically, he doesn't have the chops to be the chief executive of New York City.
Oh heavens, he is not temperamentally suited to it either. He's really kind of erratic. He reminds me of me, actually.
Mm-hmm.
He's very bright in some ways, but not somebody you want in charge. And Adams, his victory speech was, "It's official. Our 5-borough knock every door, reach every voter campaign was successful. We've won the race for mayor of New York City. This is my dream come true, and I couldn't be more proud to represent the city that we all love as your mayor-elect. Adams was widely favored to win in a city where Democrats outnumber Republicans 7-1. He'll replace Fuckface as the city's leader. New York City will see a number of changes under Adams, including its approach to crime fighting, which was one of the top issues for voters. He's committed to selecting a woman as the city's next NYPD commissioner. Adams also strong believer in residency requirements for the NYPD. As mayor, Adams will be charged with continuing the fight against COVID, blah, 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 blah. So, okay. So anyway, Adams does not intend to get rid of the city's program for gifted and talented students, nipping plans that de Blasio had announced. That's one of the most insane things that de Blasio did, truly, really and truly, was to even consider, to even think about, to entertain the notion of getting rid of gifted and talented plans. It absolutely beggars belief how stupid someone can be in a position like that.
What's the name of that school that I guess the movie Fame was sort of based on? There's some high school for the arts that they have there.
Yeah,
in New York City, and it's a real place.
But yeah, it's
a real place, and it
yes.
exists. Nobody would suggest that if you were to take just random students, just as drawn from a lottery, 2 Left Feet Joe, let's send him there. Let's just take random kids and we'd shove them into that school. That somehow they would magically.
LaGuardia High School of Music and Performing Arts.
So nobody would think that if you took regular talent, people with regular levels of talent or less, and stuck them in that high school, that they would do really well. That doesn't work that way, any more so than saying, I think that my kid with an 83 IQ should go to the same school as the gifted kids so he'll learn math more better. That doesn't work either. Nor does it make any sense to take the students who just like, I just want to dance, and take them and send them to the regular school without an arts program. There's nothing wrong with making sure that everybody gets the best education they can possibly get, even if it doesn't mean that it's equal. But people are uncomfortable with this in the current culture where everything is about equity, and they don't care about the end result of whether we have talented doctors or talented dancers or talented
You're so
anybody.
right. Yeah, because what we're trying to do is get the people with the right skin color up to a minimum standard so we can call them a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. And who cares about whether or not they're any good at it once they get the credentials they were nursed through their professional school to receive. And the standards were bent so they could, pass them, and kept taking tests, failing time after time after time until finally they simply had the answers hammered enough into their head where they were able to pass it and show a absolutely minimal level of competence.
Well, I'm glad he's not getting rid of the gifted programs.
Yeah,
because in a lot of ways, those kids won't succeed if you mainstream. A lot of them won't.
They'll get too bored.
Yeah, they'll get too bored,
and they'll lose. You lose kids. I mean, it's kind of clear that middle school age is where you lose a lot of kids in schools.
Oh, definitely.
For gifted kids, it's earlier than that. It is, seriously.
Oh, I believe it, but you'd guarantee it. You'll just guarantee losing a bunch of kids, or putting their parents. You might see people leave the city again. But yet another reason to leave New York City.
It's a good reason.
It is a good reason. If you can, I mean, that's the problem. Is some people are just tied to the public transportation for their jobs, and they're you've seen what's happened in LA when they've had charter schools, and the people just lined up around the block from some of the poorer neighborhoods trying to get their kids into the damn program. You've seen parents weep when the lottery's over because their kid didn't make it. Those parents give a shit about their kids. You know, we're always running down people for not caring about their kids. Well, you see these parents standing for hours to try to get a seat at the table where they can just be there for a lottery to get their kid into a quality school. And
But
that
not every kid has to go to college. Not every kid.
right.
AOC was at her level of competence when she was a bartender. She probably was a pretty good bartender. She probably enjoyed her work and probably had a pretty good time. But somebody said, "No, you've got to go to Boston University or wherever you went in." She got in there. They said, "Oh, you're a minority. You check off something on our list. We've got a soft economics degree. Don't worry. You don't have to do all that calculus stuff that the regular econ majors have to do. We have soft courses, calculus for the sociology of economics, majors. It's completely painless." And she went through this, sat through the seminars where people used words that they themselves barely understood, and wrote papers that were completely coached all the way through. They gave her a degree, and now she's in Congress and she's helping run our country because people are absolutely cynical about that. She was picked as a placeholder, and she is no more independent than Joe Biden is. Changed my mind.
Mm-mm. No, I wouldn't.
So I don't know. Anyway, to Harry's point, Harry made actually a very interesting point.
Not intentionally.
No, you did, and it has to do with
Doofus.
the age at which really gifted children, truly children with a real gift, go off the rails. And I actually think that you start to lose them possibly in grade school. Certainly by junior high.
It's actually worse in grade school, because the sort of the gap in terms of their ability to learn and the kids around them is so much greater as
And
they
the
get
years
further up in
seem
the
so
years.
long.
Well, yeah, not every gifted kid is an autodidact.
Yeah, right.
So for kids, for a lot of these kids, it can be a real problem. And so when they should be learning basic arithmetic and doing all this stuff at an early age and then moving on to the next thing, they're just bored out of their skulls and they don't even know what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
I run into this a lot. I mean, it's a slightly different topic. I've had a lot of people come to me and say, "I want to become a graphic designer." And I'll say, "Okay, that's very interesting. So you want to be a graphic designer? Tell me a little bit about yourself and how you and art have been buddies for life. Tell me about what you used to do as a kid." And I'm generally of the opinion that even though you can teach people to do all sorts of things, the person that you really want, if you want high level work, is the person who couldn't do anything but sketch.
Yes.
That kid who was sitting in the back making up new superheroes on their peachy binder
Right.
when they were supposed to be doing something else. The people who are just compelled to do something. I think that it's really hard to go against people's nature. Just because you go, "Oh, well, somebody should be in STEM." Well, why? Because that's where the best paying jobs are. And maybe that's not what this person's supposed to do.
That might not be their aptitude, even if they're gifted.
But we need diversity there. That's what they'll say. They say
Yeah.
we need diversity there. And if this person checks off that box, we will push them that way.
Yeah, you're not a person. You're not a person anymore. You're just a member of a group. We're not going to deal with you as an individual. We're just going to deal with you as a member of a set of people with a common skin color.
Right.
It's completely dehumanizing
Mm-hmm.
because you're
Johnny?
looking at humanity as groups, as a mass, as like a pile of meat of a certain volume and mass. You're not looking at an individual. You're not talking to the person across from you.
Giving you a number and taking away your name.
Well, that's why I would ask people about what they would do. I find that people who have to force themselves to do art are not going to be the world's best graphic designers. They might make a perfectly good art director, but they're not going to be a good
Right.
graphic designer. Back in the day, the people who ran all the computer systems were the nerds. And you had to have a particular mindset and a very more or less unique set of skills, not unique, but rare set of skills to do this sort of thing. And now we've changed everything so that lots of people who really couldn't have coded under the old paradigm can. We said, here's a framework. You can use this framework. And this is how these things fit together. And they've got all of these analogies about how you're taking all these pre-built components and putting them together. If you handed them a book of algorithms and said, write a bubble sort from scratch, you have 10 minutes, they would just go, what?
What? Right. Exactly.
So they don't know anything about what's going on underneath it, but they want to be called computer scientist.
Right.
Yeah.
But they don't know what a B+ tree is.
Yeah. I mean, I can safely say the little bit I did study in college for my bachelor's versus what I ended up getting with my associates was pretty different. So,
Well, you can be a game developer. There's nothing wrong with being a game developer. You're just not a computer scientist. You could be a fantastic game developer with creative ideas and amazing things. But the point being, people are not infinitely malleable. They have certain sets of skills, like somebody who's deeply nurturing, right? Who has a very high emotional IQ, who would be just a fantastic nurse or caregiver or working in a hospice or something. We're taking somebody who would be perfectly suited to that job and going, no, no, no. Don't let those mean old men tell you that you can't be a computer programmer. You need to do this. You need to go here and learn about these methods. And then you need to do this. And when you're 35, you're going to just think about like killing yourself or something. I mean, metaphorically speaking, you're going to have a career change because you're going to be completely burned out because you're doing something you're not suited for. I just want people to have the choice. I don't think we should enforce quotas. I just want everybody to have the choice. And I think that if you look at things on economic lines instead of skin color, you'll get a lot of times the same result, but you'll do it in a way that doesn't dehumanize people. You're not dealing with equity, you're providing social mobility. You're making sure that just because somebody's born poor, that they're not going to be poor for the rest of their life because they start out being disadvantaged.
Right. Yeah.
But you're not taking the person who's the half black person who becomes a quarterback, makes millions of dollars, then stops being a quarterback and becomes a professional race grifter. I don't know who I could be thinking of. And then trying to make them into some kind of victim.
Yeah.
When that guy has had way more advantage than I've ever had.
Yeah. Yeah. He had a pretty comfortable upbringing too.
Yeah. I've taken a bunch of these little quizzes, about privilege, and I actually keep scoring as not being privileged. Not that matters. I don't think if I take my BuzzFeed privilege score, that's going to help me get anything. But I do find it amusing.
Yeah.
Of course, some of those privilege tests are just what race are you?
Well, that's the fast test.
You get some points, some privilege points for just saying that you're not black or not, First Peoples or whatever they're called these days.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
it's an odd thing. So at any rate, in other news, and there is other news, I noticed that a longtime Minnesota surgeon was dismissed from his job after making the insane argument that parents should make healthcare decisions for their children.
Yes.
That's exactly what a racist would say.
My God. What?
Yeah.
I'll just read a little bit of this. The regional health provider, Lake Region Healthcare, confirmed that Dr. Jeffrey Horak no longer works there as of Wednesday. The company did not specify the reason for his departure, but the doctor recently made comments regarding parents making healthcare decisions for their children. He said, "I am a man who believes individuals have the right to do their research and decide what is best for them and their children when it comes to their health. I don't believe governments or institutions should dictate that. It's a position I've always taken, and when the science doesn't make sense to me, it's hard for me to go along.
Yes, but
Fire that asshole.
his science is wrong science.
Yeah, it's wrong science.
He's not listening to the
Nice.
experts. The experts know right science.
It's wrong science.
It's wrong. Yeah, he's sciencing wrong.
I love that. It's,
Well,
it's an extension of Orwell, right? It's a direct extension of Orwell.
Absolutely. There's
Well
wrong.
said.
There's wrong science and there's right science, and you know, I have said a number of times that we are in an age of scientism right now.
Yeah.
And I've gotten pushback from people, and I'm like, seriously? Well, in most things, it's like if you can't look at the public discourse on climate change and our current situation with COVID-19 and see that it is scientism that is, well, the scientists have said, and therefore God has spoken.
Well, it's like you take your narrative and you paint it over with science and say it's painted with science.
Yeah.
You can't say anything.
They blinded you with science. And
blinded you with science.
and there, even though there is a cadre of scientists who disagree, they're all heretics. I mean, the way they're treated, the way they're dismissed, so what you're dealing with are political scientists. And I don't mean they study political science. They're political scientists. And that is dangerous and tragic, because the search for the truth, which is supposed to be foundational, scientific principles, which are foundational, are being chucked aside for consensus. The consensus of the scientists at a particular time was that the sun revolved around the earth.
Mhm.
And those were the experts. They said so. And when it was brought up that, yeah, but this doesn't work,
Mhm.
and the model was shown to be flawed, that person was deemed a heretic. They were wrong, the science has said. And whether that science is backed by religious faith or whether it is backed by political persuasion doesn't make a lick of fucking difference. Greta Thunberg is running around screaming about how many people are going to die from global climate catastrophe. The last century has seen a 90% reduction in the death of individuals from non-man-made disaster. Global catastrophes, hideous hurricanes and typhoons, earthquakes, tornadoes, droughts, all kinds of things have continued to strike us all around the globe. Yet we have seen a 90% reduction. But they prop her up and let her TISM flag fly so she can growl out, "People are dying."
Yeah.
And everybody laps it up. People are dying every day. You're damn right they are. But they're not dying right now of climate. Now, I'm not saying that if we don't address particularly the grievous harm that is being done in Asia by both India and China in regard
to both air and water.
To both air and water, yes.
Yeah.
That people will not die. I mean, people are dying in China now. They're just not owning up to it.
They're dying in India, too.
And they're dying in India.
Believe me.
Both countries need to go nuclear in the proper sense of going nuclear, just like we need to be advocating for nuclear. I don't. I have said this. I'm on the record saying it. I am for mixed systems of power generation. I know which ones are foolish and which ones have a terrible carbon footprint. You can find that shit out. It's getting harder to, particularly with EVs, because once again, the scientism is in.
Well, you'll be happy to know. You're going to be thrilled to know that Prime Minister Trudeau has decided to end petroleum production in Canada.
Oh, that's helpful because Joe Biden's whinging about fucking.
He's phasing it out.
The Saudis, the Saudis and the Russians aren't producing enough.
Yeah, we don't need exports.
Yeah, this is absolutely unbelievably short-sighted because
it's going to push us to nuclear. It really will push us to nuclear.
No, that's awesome.
Well, that's awesome.
That's actually good news in a way.
If we were building the plants
in the long term, we need to.
Canada's
we need
less
to nuke
resistant.
our EPA rules that keep us from building plants and get on the molten salt thorium train.
Well, Canada's less resistant.
What are those reactors, Harry?
Oh, there's several different designs. That's just a cooling method. I like the ones that are cooled by helium, the pebble design. It's a big hopper pebbles, and then you basically just pass helium over it to heat that up, and then go through a heat exchanger. But
Canada
I
is less.
the scientism thing. I was remaining quiet, and the topic kind of left the station before I was able to comment on it. I understand what Prospero is saying, and I don't think I'm really playing devil's advocate. But people talk about logical fallacies all the time, like inductive reasoning, saying, well, just because something always has been some way, it doesn't mean it will. Or the slippery slope. People say the slippery slope argument is a logical fallacy. It's a logical fallacy which often turns out to be accurate. So as a tool, we find, knowing what we know about human nature, that slippery slope arguments often seem to end up being valid over time. You look back and go, yeah, that was a slippery slope, all right, and here we are. As the Overton window moves or whatever it is. The idea that a person can just go, a group of scientists, say as a majority of a group of technical people, technically educated people who work with the tools of science, say that a thing is a particular way, but that doesn't prove that they're actually correct. It absolutely does not prove that it's correct. But it does tell you that of a very large group of people who are highly educated and work with the tools of science, they've been convinced of a particular thing. Now, since they're not automatons, they could be convinced for a whole bunch of reasons that have nothing to do with science because they're just human. But the idea that you can just say, of these highly intelligent, highly educated people, the fact that a vast majority of them agrees on a particular point is completely meaningless. I think that's kind of a specious argument. I think there is meaning in the fact that a bunch of people with those kinds of background all believe something.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that they're correct. It doesn't prove the point.
If I said that the notion of consensus is insane,
oh no, I'm not attacking you. I'm talking about the argument.
I see what you're saying. Well, it can cut both ways. My problem with the climate science consensus goes back to the East Anglia emails and the massive back scrabbling that was done in an attempt to go, no, paying no attention to the man behind the curtain, and the outright lying.
Oh yeah. Well, there's
same with what's gone on in the last 2 years. The outright fucking lying is what's getting on my nerves because it's indicating to me that I'm not sure that there is the consensus that was formed out of scientific inquiry at all. I think the consensus was formed out of, we'll beat the shit out of you and pull your grant if you don't say this.
Yeah, there is a definite problem. Anybody who has looked at a jury trial where there were technical experts knows that you can wrap something in the robes of science and claim that it's correct. And but in reality, you can get an expert an expert or two or three, if you have the money, to agree with whatever stupid thing you want to say.
Hmm.
Yes.
It's really easy to get scientists, and we've also been letting people use the label of scientists who aren't really scientists.
Yes,
And you notice with the climate stuff, a lot of the things you're talking about are statements that weren't made by climate scientists per se.
correct.
They were made by people like Greta Thunberg, not a climate scientist.
Bill Nye, who
Bill
claims
Nye.
to be a climate scientist. but
Al
is not.
Gore, also not a climate scientist.
Michael Mann, not a climate scientist.
Michael-
Sorry,
So-
he's not.
but but you go back to Hansen et al., the original
Yes.
paper from the 80s, and you go, there's more infrared being trapped. That energy has to go somewhere. I wonder
Yes.
what's going to happen. You still go back to some basic principles that you have to sort of deal with.
I don't deny the existence of greenhouse gases.
No.
Here's this is the thing. The air has caught fucking fire in China. We know from our own experience in the 60s, and anybody sticking their head in the sand and saying that they are not aware of this is insane. Our air was getting pretty bad in this country. And our water was getting pretty bad. Lake Erie caught fire. We had some really disturbing data in the 60s and 70s, and we buckled down, and the EPA is another one of those roads to hell being paved with good intention. Early days, a lot of the work was very, very good. We've cleaned up a lot of things. We have much cleaner water now than we did in
The
1970.
Clean Air and Clean Water Act were brilliant ideas
they were.
that were carried off fairly well, especially the Clean Air Act.
Oh, yeah, we cleaned our air up a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, it's amazing how much cleaner the air is. You do not see a high pressure inversion cause the kind of nastiness that we all experienced in the 70s from a high pressure inversion.
Oh,
It was
Denver
just-
used to have the worst air in the United States.
Yep.
Denver's basically an old basin down, nestled up against the
Yep.
Rocky Mountains. So you get these inversions that would just settle down with the worst smog on earth. And because of the one of the things was banning burning woods in fireplaces. That was a big part of it. And the other thing was building enough roads to handle the traffic better.
Then have the jams just sitting there. Yes.
Exactly.
chugging
made
it
a
out.
huge difference.
And
You
we
know, like
cleaned
LA
up our
does.
emissions out of automobiles a good
Oh, yeah.
deal. We cleaned
Yep.
up plant emissions a tremendous amount. And that wasn't, the coal industry moved toward clean burning coal, which is a thing. It's not perfectly clean, but Christ, it's a lot better than it was.
Oh yeah,
a
dirty.
lot
We're not burning.
better.
We're not burning dirty coal hardly at all.
We're not
anymore.
puking sulfur dioxide into the air at the rate that we were.
Right.
It's a
Um,
fine aerosol.
Yeah,
I do have
Yeah.
a couple, well, actually 3 definitions of scientism, which I think might be helpful in terms of this, because it probably needs some sort of definition, and not everybody really agrees on
Mhm.
what it actually means. This is a good definition, but probably a little broad. This is from a historian who says, efforts to extend scientific ideas, methods, practices, and attitudes to matters of human, social, and political concern.
Yeah.
Meaning taking the tools of science and trying to apply them, to have
Policy.
like a new scientific reality of politics. This is the kind of guy who thinks we just need an AI to decide everything. But there's a couple others. A philosopher had a slightly different definition, which I think you might like. Scientism is a matter of putting too high a value on natural science in comparison with other branches of learning or culture.
Mhm.
And an MIT physicist, basically, his formulation was, science modeled on the natural sciences is the only source of real knowledge. Now, I think if you look at those 3 definitions from people who've spent a lot of time looking at these things, you get a pretty good glimpse into what scientism is. But I think most of what galls you and a lot of other people is the lazy misapplication of it. These
Mhm.
guys who are in politics really aren't much better than the paid consultant at a hit and run accident trial.
Yep.
I don't think that a lot of these people have credibility. And as you pointed out, they get the research dollars. The research program is, which was Lakatos's scientific philosophy model for how science takes place is a real thing. You know, we've seen it in other countries like the Soviet Union, where you toe the line or you don't have a job.
Yep.
And that is true to a lesser degree here, but probably not as much as we would like, because it feels like politics and science have collided in a way where science isn't really doing all that well because of it.
It isn't. And then you have people who purport to be experts in their field with what I would consider to be actual limited clinical practice or clinical exposure or actual proven magnificence, using their job title as a club. Fauci, I think, is one of those people. I think he's a middling mind who
He's
has
not a scientist.
who has studied medicine, claims he is a virologist, was incredibly wrong about AIDS.
Was so unbelievably good at it, he went into public health.
Yeah.
Just saying.
And he was magnificently wrong about AIDS. That should have destroyed his career.
He kept doubling down too.
Yeah, but he's still there because he is
Yeah.
a political worm. And that alone, that kind of incredible, the doubling down in the face of evidence that was disproving his point of view. He's very resistant to anything that doesn't support his hypothesis. Those kinds of jobs actually do better with a team, in my opinion, because it keeps one person from being the emperor of all things medicine. And right now you have a guy who has been wrong a lot about our current situation. But when he changes now, he says, yes, we'll see the science has changed. Has it?
It's changed a little.
Or have the political winds changed?
Well, like we did find that a lot of our concerns early on when we didn't know things turned out to be not true.
But you don't make public statements the way that they were making them. I mean, I'm sorry, but until you had more evidence, I don't think some of the public statements that were made should have been made.
I mean, like Al Gore saying that the sea levels would rise so much that New York would be inundated with water 7 years. I think it was 12 years ago now.
Correct. Or the go out and socialize. It's not that big of a problem.
Yeah.
Followed by don't wear masks. Followed by wear masks. Followed by if you don't wear a mask, we're going to shoot you.
Followed by wear 2 masks and maybe 3.
And maybe 3. And then it's like, dude, you're utterly ignoring other actual clinicians who are using medications, who are standing over there in the corner waving studies at you.
People who did better on those testy things than you did in medical school.
Yeah, people who've had their hands on patients
yes.
a lot, and you haven't.
And recently.
Did your residency, you prick. Which means you sucked with patients, by the way. If you go into public medicine immediately out of your residency, you weren't very good at it.
That's because you barely made it through 3rd year.
You didn't kill that many people.
Real scientists would not try to shut down discussion. They would welcome discussion. So if Paul Merrick shows up and starts saying, I've got this theory and here's my numbers, well, you don't just do an ad hominem against Dr. Merrick. You talk about the data and you deal with the data. What they're doing is if they get numbers they don't like, they just say, well, that wasn't an FDA sponsored.
Correct.
So it doesn't count. You know, the same group of people that say all cultures are equal, except when it comes to looking at research from other cultures.
And that you can change your sex.
Yeah, do we just assume that that Egyptian researchers and Brazilian researchers just lie? Do we think that they're incompetent? Do we think that they're not as good as doctors in the first world?
Were the Spanish lying? Were the South Africans lying? Are the Indians lying? I mean, how many liars are you going to claim exist? Are you going to claim Japan is lying? Are you going to claim that they're putting members of their population at risk? Was the entire state of Goa in India just nothing but a bunch of lab rats? Come on, stop it. It's what are we up to? 45, 50 studies now on
Well,
ibuprofen, and you still cannot get the FDA to even blink. And it's absolutely unconscionable to me when you have overseas data to act like, well, those are all rubes.
Well, you can say that it's not good enough. You can say that it doesn't meet a standard.
Yes.
But shutting people up because you're saying it's too important to make sure that you don't say the things
the-
that you're saying. We
Yes.
can't allow you to. That's not science. That's religion.
Yes, it is.
They can't back up their objection. But, you know,
They can't back up their
object to the data.
objections.
They object to the conclusions that come up, but they know that if it comes down to testing it with science, they'll fail because they can't back those up. But it doesn't serve their narrative, and you know,
They went immediately to ad hominem, and that should have told you that they were scared.
yes,
Tess
exactly.
Lowry and others have come under fire as stooges and fuckwits and trumpeters. And I mean, they call them, it's absolutely amazing. When Dr. Pierre Corey has to explain what his politics are
Yeah,
in order to be heard,
they all
then-
have to say,
and-
"I hate Trump,"
and then
before they get heard.
disbelieved. And then you take someone who uses a standard model of data compilation, which is what Tess Lowry did. You know, for want of a better way of saying it, you have these multiple random tests, and there is a particular standard that is used. And she uses that.
Mm.
And they call her methodology suspect. This is SOP for every other thing that has been tested in multiple countries to see about efficacies, outcomes.
Well, you actually make a great point right there, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to hide behind the science, and they're trying to hide, you know, this doesn't follow, you know, normal experimental procedure, and they believe that enough of the proletariat, and they're right about this.
They
by the
are.
way,
They've been
enough of
very
the
effective.
proletariat won't look deeply enough into it to see past their facile lies and see that, you know, they really don't know any more than anybody else, and they're groping in the dark, but they don't want to be seen that way.
It'll tell you something when medical practitioners who are used to running double-blind tests on medications, they're used to gathering that kind of data. I mean, it's been done countless times. When they no longer want to use to do those tests with human subjects because they consider it immoral to not look at the efficacy numbers that they saw and provide the medication.
So
And-
are you
and-
saying that for a certain medication, let's say there was another medication, I'm not going to say its name, but let's say there was another medication that had proved itself anecdotally time after time after time to where the stories were getting downright embarrassing,
Yes.
and people were starting to talk, and some of the talking they were doing was saying maybe it's time to take a serious look at this and actually do the kind of study that might prove it right or wrong.
Mhm.
But maybe they were reluctant to do that study. Why would they be reluctant to do that study, Prospero?
They might be accused of killing the people they put in the
Control group.
the control group.
Yeah.
Because one study was scuppered because of they just thought it would be
Mengelish.
It would be against their oath
Yeah, it
because
would be unethical. Yeah.
they were seeing 60+% efficacy. I mean, I'm kind of at the point that when you have something that
not that we're saying that there's anything out there that shows
no, I'm not. But
that kind of level of efficacy. But in the event that in this parallel timeline, this parallel universe you're talking about,
they've thrown out the highs, they've thrown out the lows, and they've taken the averages. And everything that I am aware of has a better than 50% efficacy. I don't know whether you've seen anything different, Harry, but I was seeing between 60 and 70%, and in some studies higher.
in this parallel universe.
In this parallel universe. That is enough reason to try the motherfucker when there are no side effects.
Well,
Okay?
There's lots of things. There's lots of, if something has a good safety profile, it definitely makes things easier, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, good safety profile means the risk reward benefit, even potential reward.
3 billion
becomes-
doses.
Becomes good. So it's not the thing that has been banned because they haven't picked up on this particular word yet. But there's a study in Lancet as of, I think it was like 4 or 5 days ago. Effective early treatment with fluvoxamine on risk of emergency care and hospitalization among patients with COVID-19. This is a randomized, double-blind study. This is exactly the kind of stuff that's happening in the Lancet, and they found that it actually seems to be helpful with a group this has everything the FDA could want in a study.
Yep.
So saying does it prove that it should be part of the standard of care? No, maybe not. But you can't say that there aren't things out there that people are looking to repurpose and that there's no promise in any of them.
Right.
The $64 question to me is, why aren't they following these leads up?
Why aren't they following the science?
Yeah, why aren't they aggressively following the science, as you put it? Why aren't
real
they
scientists are. It's just government scientists seem to be a little reluctant.
In this country, they are particularly reluctant. It seems the Anglosphere.
What do you think that's based on, guys?
Well, there are a number of reasons I could guess about that. Well, the FDA is not fit for purpose. We already know that. They're just
I
simply
agree with you.
They're not.
I wouldn't have agreed 10 years ago, but
I wouldn't. But they've demonstrated it over the last 2 years to me that they're not fit for purpose.
Yeah.
The WHO was not fit for purpose.
Well, WHO has been a joke for a long, long time.
Yeah, decades ahead of the FDA in that. But,
Yeah.
I think. Hold on, I think Youngkin might have been called, at least being called by some people now.
Yeah, I'm getting it called, and that's with 95% reporting. They have called it for Youngkin. That is 12 NBC.
Yeah, your channel 12, the local Richmond station is calling it.
Just clicked up. Yep.
I'm not going to celebrate yet.
Yeah, I was going to say because they have not received those extra votes from Fairfax County.
No,
There's going to be 81 million votes come in from Fairfax County.
I was
going to tip this election the other way.
I was literally afraid to have hope.
I know you were.
Yeah.
I knew exactly what you were doing with yourself mentally. You were just preparing yourself. You're just readying yourself for a heartbreaking loss.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just wasn't.
How would you like to be Glenn Youngkin?
Last year was
this
bad
sack
enough.
of shit from the Democrats dumped in your lap now.
This Clintonista flotsam.
The state is in the state's in good shape. I wouldn't be
The
able
bureaucracy is not.
The bureaucracy is not, but the state's in good shape. There was a very large COOF windfall, which they haven't been able to piss away. And there are, it will depend on that. Correct. It will depend on the House of Delegates and the Senate.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of motivation, or at least there was among conservatives for once, in regard to education. And I'd like to see them follow through on that. I would like to see in the best of all possible worlds, I would like to see all critical race theory curriculum barred from
Destroyed.
Virginia schools.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't want it done.
Some
I
books
do
should
not
be
want
burned.
it done with a stroke of a pen from the executive. I want it done by my House of Delegates and Senate. That's where I want it done. I want it legislated that kind of division by race education is not to exist in Virginia public schools. The Commonwealth is better than that. You're preaching segregationist bullshit when you're preaching critical race theory. Now, I know that Karlin Borisenko doesn't like it when people point out the racial aspects of it. I'm sorry, Ms. Borisenko. It has to be pointed out. I don't like the fact that we have segregated dormitories showing up again in this country. It makes me sick because my childhood, like Skep's, is peppered with images of human fucking misery brought about by segregation. We saw people assassinated over race. And we thought about 1980, 85, kind of somewhere in there, we thought we really had a handle on that shit.
We thought we turned the corner.
Yeah, we thought we turned the corner. We thought things were going good. And then that piece of shit Sharpton and Tawana Brawley came up. And I thought, oh, no, stop it. And then the Rainbow Coalition.
I thought Tawana Brawley, that whole thing, I thought that would put the knife in this. I never thought it would raise it to new heights of absurdity.
So did I. I thought that it was so vulgar because the young black people that were in that I was in contact with responded so negatively to that story from the against Sharpton.
Mm-hmm.
Their response was, stop it. We're getting past that. Leave us alone. Our generation is working past this. Yeah. Stop trying to drag us back into your past, Al.
Who was the guy who was the head of the Urban League who hated Sharpton? That's who you're talking about. Was that kind of guy?
Yeah, I mean there was a
Roy
big
something or other.
Yeah, there was a big division over all of that, but the Rainbow Coalition and Sharpton realized they could start shaking companies down and civil servants down, and started.
Jesse Jackson said, "Hold my latte."
Yeah, and then he was getting big. He
raised that to an art form.
Yeah, he was getting big checks from companies saying, "I won't point out how the iniquity of your." Because he's an equity asshole.
Yeah.
And he's Jesse Jackson's finest moment was over in 1968.
Yeah.
In April of 1968, that's when it was over.
Yep.
And I won't say that just if you had aimed the rifle a little to the right, never mind.
It was only because King was killed that Jackson burst into prominence. He would have stayed in King's shadow for as long as King lived.
Oh, yes, he would have. Because he was nowhere. He was no Medgar Evers.
Oh, yeah.
He was he was just not.
He's a shyster.
Yeah, he's an opportunist and a hanger-on.
Yeah.
And he always has been. And Sharpton's a flim-flam man.
Yeah. Sharpton is an out-and-out con man. Yeah, exactly.
He's a flim-flam man.
Yeah.
And
runs a short con, and he knows exactly how to do it.
Yeah, and he doesn't mind who he slanders in the process or how much judgment is placed against him. Somebody will come along and pay off his debts for him.
Yeah.
And fostering more of that guilt in people and that sense of generational responsibility.
He knows
You were-
that money is just a phone call away.
But we are not responsible for our parents' sins. This is not the United States doesn't have a national religion.
What about the fact that your parents who owned slaves were responsible for giving you white privilege?
Well, because my parents did not own slaves,
Yes, they
No.
did.
nor did their parents.
Belief is a choice.
Yeah, I understand.
Wakanda is real.
It's somebody else's lived truth.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
just like their imaginary truth, which is why you end up with so many cooked up hate crimes and fake graffiti and shit that turns out, like you get swastikas painted on a synagogue and it turns out some smart aleck little activist from the synagogue did it.
Yeah.
Or, and goddamn them to hell. Okay.
I like it when they don't draw them properly.
Yes,
like-
that's really
It's like,
funny.
couldn't you have just done a web search to figure out how to draw it correctly?
You got it
It's
backwards.
fine. It's fine.
You just keep drawing those sun symbols wrong.
Yeah.
And it's
It
Jesus
could have
Christ.
worked a lot better. Speaking of wrong way, did you hear that the state of Ohio printed 35,000 license plates with the banner of
Yes.
On the wrong end of the airplane?
It was on the front of the plane. They said first in flight, and North Carolina went after him. It was so cute. They were like, guys.
First of all, objection number one.
First of all, they ran a bike shop in Ohio. The plane took off in
Kitty Hawk.
Kill Devil Hills.
Kill
Yeah.
Devil Hills, yeah.
Yeah, well, which was part of Kitty Hawk at the time. And second of all, is that plane flying backwards?
It didn't have a reverse gear, not in that iteration.
Mhm.
No, it didn't. And it's funny because, the Wright Flyer is a very peculiar looking device. And I could see if somebody were just to look at
They think it's a
an
tail of a
oblique
plane.
photograph, particularly there are a lot of oblique images of it.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, look, the Wrights are flying backwards. Who knew that Wilbur could fly backwards? Bless him. But yeah, it just, I've never cared whether North Carolina or Ohio got credit for first in flight
Mhm.
because they were from Ohio, but they went to North Carolina. But we know where it took place.
It
Their
doesn't matter.
It doesn't
Doesn't
matter. It was an amazing and intensely insane and brave thing to do. Wilbur did end up losing his life later in another
Yeah,
experimental crash.
taking a guy for a ride.
Yeah. And, like a lot of barnstormers, guys who survived training in warfare ended up dead. They were risk takers. They were guys that lived on the edge. But it's stunning because 108 years now? Look where we are. We're taking passengers into low Earth orbit, basically.
We're
boofing.
building commercial airliners out of basically carbon fiber now.
Yes.
We figured out how to make enormous tubes out of carbon fiber, which is a thing we couldn't do before. If
Yeah.
you look at
And
the
they-
Wright Flyer, it suffers from two major problems, other than the fact that it flies backwards.
Mm-hmm.
The first problem is that they didn't have strong materials that were really lightweight,
Correct.
which made building it a pain in the ass. Okay?
Yes.
And second problem is that the horsepower to weight ratio of the engines that you put on the already heavy airframe sucked.
Yeah, they did. That's why
Yes.
they needed a windy place.
And so if you look at just the aircraft from the beginning of World War II or from before World War II up to the ones at the end of World War II, you see this huge increase in the output of those engines.
Oh, fuck yeah.
It's like you go in with like the Buffalo and you come out with the Mustang.
Oh, yeah, because, Rolls-Royce was building amazing engines. And, aeronautic engines just improved dramatic. There were still some fabulous planes that the early part of the year, so I'm not going to knock the British in particular. Were putting up,
You know,
some
but
war
even
horses,
the Wright
but-
brothers, stood on the shoulders of giants. One
Yes,
in
they did.
particular was a guy named Otto Lilienthal.
Mhm.
Lilienthal built gliders. He probably was the greatest glider builder of that time, and they took a lot of hit things that he learned and he paid for with his life. By the way, he died in a glider accident.
Mhm.
But he was just before they really got active. He had worked out a lot of the things, and the Wright Flyer is there are many parts of it that are based on Lilienthal discovered principles.
Well, so much of mechanical engineering
Mm-hmm.
is that it's the building the better mousetrap. It's the
Definitely.
it's adding a motor to the mousetrap. It's then
Maybe
figuring.
we should put the ailerons in back.
Yeah, it's figuring out the dynamics of the motion. You know, it's the physicist borrowing from the physicist, even if they are garage tinkerer physicists. You know, they're mechanical engineers and
I meant the
physicists,
ailerons, but
and
anyway.
a little bit of everything. They're innovators, and they're
Yeah.
guys that push the edge of the envelope. And it was amazing. That the saddest thing on the 100th anniversary of flight at Kill Devil Hills was the weather was horrible on the anniversary day, and they had to cancel a lot of the festivities. John Travolta was going to be flying his
707.
727. He had qualified in that by then, I think.
But he owned
yeah.
outright a 707.
Yeah, he was going to fly in. And I mean, there were all these things, and they were like, no, I mean, the weather was dreadful. It was raining like crazy. And if you get fog in an area like that, you got to no-go, because the winds are just can be very strong along the coast, as you know, Skep. And it just that unpredictable Atlantic weather. And the
But that wind served the Wrights very well.
yes, it
Gave
did.
them the lift that their inefficient machine required to have its first successful flight. You know,
It's a neat place to visit.
It's a giant step. Oh yeah, it actually is. I've been there myself.
And there's a restaurant now in part of the building, part of the life-saving station that had the telegrapher's office is still extant, and in Kitty Hawk. And it's part of a restaurant now, but you can actually go in there, and that is where they sent their telegram saying they had achieved flight.
You can eat and be a part of history in Kill Devil Hills, but yeah.
Well, that's in Kitty Hawk, because it was all Kitty Hawk, but that that life-saving station, which it's a beautiful building, the old part. A lot of the old life-saving stations were. They put some work in those.
I sent you a link to an image of John Travolta's house, Skep, in the private chat.
Alrighty, I've looked at it. I've looked at his hangar situation.
I think that the chat
saw an
might,
article.
The
might find this
design
interesting.
is just so cool. I think it's great. You talk about mid-century modern meets airport.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is and he's got the 707 there
Parked
too.
in the driveway. Yeah,
Parked in the driveway. I'm going to share this real quick.
that's
Carport.
awesome.
Yeah, no, not so much a carport.
Yeah, but it is like a carport. I love the fact that the cockpit is in the carport. It's just cute. It's clever, and it's nowhere near. But it looks just like a lot of airport design did mid-century. And he's a child of that period. And
the runway goes right up to the house. He's got like a nice little place where he can park his planes in the rain, and
even the circle has that. Is that a helipad?
That's a helicopter pad.
Yeah, and so it's got all those little nifty whiz bangs that those open air airports.
But the carport over the front of the
Yes.
707
Isn't that
is just
hilarious?
precious.
It's like if
Yeah.
it's raining, I don't have to get wet when I get out of the plane.
I can just go in.
It's so cute. It keeps the cockpit cool.
There you go.
God.
So you know about Bruce Dickinson from, what, Iron Maiden. He's also big into aviation, maybe not quite at the same level as John Travolta. But
Yeah.
Dickinson's been involved in aviation companies and products and been part of documentaries. And he's actually rated, I think, on a 747.
That's
Ed
interesting.
Force One, where they would carry all of the stuff for the band when they would travel around the world.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so that's how you make your passion part of your job and vice versa. It's pretty sweet.
I just thought it was awesome that
Guess they're not getting rid of the bass player.
honey, he could be
I've been in a few
could be
bands. I
playing
know
the
how that
cow-
works.
he could be playing the cowbell if he had his own plane. It would be good.
Yeah. We got a new bass player. You're on tambourine now.
Everything sounds like Don't Fear the Reaper from now on because
That's
of
right.
cowbell.
Mhm.
But the I'm really impressed. Good on you, Travolta. Neat design.
Yeah.
Very neat
Yeah.
design. I'd love
Anyway.
to meet his architect. I'd love to see the interior.
I think his
Oh, yeah.
wife passed away not that
She
long
did,
ago.
Kelly
That's
Preston.
Very sad.
It was
What did she pass away from?
cancer.
Ah,
Yeah, she was 50,
so sad. to hear
maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. Or she may have been 54, but it was, and she was a lovely, lovely woman from everything I have ever read and heard about her. She was just a very, very positive, upbeat individual. When their son died, she that was that was awful. And she still handled it with a great deal of grace. They had a son right after that. So when she passed, they had a relatively young child. Kind of very sad. People can have all the insulation of all that Hollywood money and hoopla and whatnot, and still they have to sit down to tie their shoes, and tragedy strikes them too.
Yeah, it does. It absolutely does.
They're human beings, and we've forgotten that.
Well, that's
Yeah.
the truth.
It's a beautiful house on the inside too, but unfortunately it's just him now, I guess.
Mm.
That's not nearly as good.
Mm-hmm.
No. One thing you live in dread of as you get older is losing your mate. I mean,
Yes.
it's a something that, for speaking for myself, it would leave me bereft, and
Best not to think about it.
Yeah,
yeah.
it is
won't
bad.
do any good.
My wife has a different attitude. She keeps buying these life insurance policies.
Maybe you better bring up the thing about your eyes look like limpid pools of.
Yes, it's fun.
Copper
spun
sulfate
gold.
Copper
is a
sulfate.
beautiful
It is.
chemical though.
It
Yeah.
absolutely is.
It's
Yeah.
just the best color.
It's just not the greatest compliment most women are looking for.
Depends on the woman.
Yeah, it does. I mean,
I know a few.
Marie Curie passed out when it was said to her. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that it was either
She-
that or
she
the
would-
radiation.
would've- no,
She had a
would-
certain glow about her.
She would have wanted the Nobelium ferrocyanate.
Yes, she would have.
Ferrocyanide that you were proposing.
Well, it looked like an O.
I know.
in the
It
print.
did. I had to look very closely with a magnifier.
Because
and,
it was a
very
poorly
small.
drawn lowercase a.
yeah, it was, but it was sodium for sure. And sodium bonds makes that bond much more readily than Nobelium, which has like a 58-minute half-life.
Boop, it's gone. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Your hair is now falling out.
It can only be made in a particle accelerator. I just,
Mm.
so there you go. Anyway, so yeah, pretty sure
Yeah.
that was sodium.
I checked, and they haven't magically teleported enough votes in for McAuliffe to win. So it's
The 81. We got that 81 million yet?
Yeah, because he was like, we haven't counted all the votes yet. And I was like, you got a new truck coming in there? You know, because
Mhm.
yeah, I'm still not as relieved as I would like to be, but it's so funny because when Terry said, folks, not everything is counted and we're still waiting for a lot of votes to come in and we want to ensure every Virginian's voice is heard, Jack Posobiec quote tweeted it with, I'm literally triggered right now. Democracy is in peril. Our country is teetering on the brink.
Guys, I just wanted I need to announce this. The New York Times has just called the Virginia race for Glenn Youngkin.
Holy shit. Now, rumor on the street was Joe Biden refused to take his call tonight.
Yeah.
Wow.
Youngkin?
No. McAuliffe.
Oh.
yeah. Ice cream is for winners. Time for that.
Have you been saving that, Harry?
No, it just popped into my head.
That's very cool. That's excellent.
I was just trying to think of how
made me
things
very
work in the
happy.
White House. And it was-
CNN, AP, and ABC have all.
Ice cream is for winners. I'm going to
yeah.
meme that tomorrow.
Oh, Jesus Christ. That's hilarious.
Oh, my God.
It's just a variation on coffee is for closers, but I love that meme.
Yeah. No,
Anything with Joe Biden and ice cream is automatically pretty funny.
coffee is for closers. Gosh.
God damn it. That's hilarious. Oh, boy. Oh.
Yeah, final
Yeah.
final from the New York Times with over 96% of the precincts reporting. It just says it has a greater sign than 96. 51% to 48.3%. 1,655,000 to 1,569,000. So just about 100,000 votes, about 90,000 votes actually. 90,000 vote margin.
So is he going to punch a hole in his teeth and go wandering around the country claiming he had the election stolen from him?
Let's hope he does.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Further marginalize him as a human being. Well, you guys dodged a bullet.
I actually feel like crying right now. I mean, it's
Yeah.
the absolute
Yeah.
the relief.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good day for you.
And then
Yeah.
So
the
Minneapolis
thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Minneapolis voters reject an amendment to replace the police department.
Yeah. Oops.
Oopsies.
I know all these things that I did see a little wisdom from somebody giving advice to the Democrats that maybe they better start looking for a message that appeals outside of the Bernie Sanders wackadoos. Because Sanders' wing of the party is not as big as they think it is. It's certainly not as responsive at the polls. You know, when you look at some of these triggered youngins who are so political,
Mm-hmm.
and you find out how many of them aren't even registered to vote,
Yeah.
because
No kidding.
that's what the man does.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, yeah, please continue to be an anarcho-communist and not register to vote. It's fine by me. I mean, I would like everyone to be engaged,
Keep your mitts off my ballot box.
but yeah, really.
By the way, Elizabeth Warren was elected mayor of Boston. Did you see that?
Not Elizabeth Warren.
Well, it's Michelle Wu. She studied under Elizabeth Warren at law school. So
Yeah, they got
Warren
their-
was her law school professors, and they scissored.
Yeah, because she's a progressive whack job.
She is a complete nutball.
So New York is
Boston
going to
is
straighten
toast.
their shit out, and Boston's going to go in the tank.
Yeah.
I think maybe
She's going to implement the municipal Green New Deal for Boston.
that means the Green Line is going to smell of what? Even more urine?
She's going to cut off major parts of the downtown from cars.
That can
Period.
work. Actually, in that city, that can work.
Yeah.
And anybody driving
probably-
in Boston's out of their fucking mind to begin with.
It's like driving in Manhattan. Do it once so you can say you did it, and then move on.
Well, yeah, except Manhattan doesn't have the number of potholes. Christ, you could lose a family in a pothole in Boston.
Not a good
It
time for
actually
a
did.
Vespa, where they're like the front wheel just goes whoop.
Yeah, and there you go, thud.
At the bottom of this pothole, there's like dinosaurs and
Yeah,
Yeah. Other
there's-
Vespas.
gateway to La Brea, and some dude at the bottom going ciao. Yeah, and a cow left over from the Revolutionary War. The Boston is a shit city to drive in. Only part of it is grid. At least Manhattan's a grid. The bulk of it. Down below the village, it gets a little weird, but Boston, the north end are cow paths,
Mhm.
and only the back bay is truly gridded, and that's all the landfill.
Yes. Yeah. That was.
I mean, the pretty
Manufacturing
part,
lane.
Commonwealth Avenue. And,
What do you know about Roslindale in Boston? Is that a nice neighborhood? That's where she lives.
I never heard of Roslindale.
It's bordered by Jamaica Plain, Hyde Park,
Oh.
West Roxbury, and Mattapan.
Now my information's 40 years old, but
Okay.
it's
Best we have.
she's brown.
Yes. She's
So-
a woman of color, the first mayor of color.
Rox-
First woman mayor of color.
Roxbury and Jamaica Plain were. Don't go there.
Yeah. Yeah. Jamaica Plain was famous.
So was Roxbury.
Yeah.
Massachusetts Avenue, which is a major avenue. My mother had somebody try to open her car door when my folks
Well,
were
that was
driving.
helpful.
Yeah, they were just sitting at a light near the hospital.
Door was closed. Somebody's helping her open it.
Scared the hell out of her.
Did she
But-
explain to the person that she didn't need it open right then? But thank you anyway.
And fortunately, the light changed.
And she hit the accelerator.
Well, she was in the passenger seat. My
Well,
dad hit
someone-
the accelerator.
Okay, but you know what
Oh yeah, and there's nowhere to go in a grid like that. But yeah, they had it. Boston was a mess. Black cabbies wouldn't go into Southie or Dorchester. White cabbies wouldn't go into Roxbury. It just wouldn't. I mean, after they instituted.
So this is not a great neighborhood that she lives in. Probably
It could have seen a renaissance.
gentrification.
It could have seen a renaissance. It
Yeah.
was overdue for one. But city politics being what city politics are, and the need to indenture people to the state, the way the Democrats have, and it's just, I wouldn't hold out a lot of hope that it's that much improved, but it could. I mean, it could be like a oasis between Roxbury and Jamaica Plain.
It says that Roslindale consists of dense 2- and 3-family residences amidst light industrial buildings, similar to the adjacent Stony Brook corridor in Jamaica Plain. Which the
Urban Grim. Yeah.
yeah, urban grim, exactly. It's
Yeah,
like
urban grim.
Arlington, Texas, except for the stadiums.
It's like parts of Alexandria, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, very definitely urban sprawl.
Rail yards.
Yeah.
Rail yards below the
Oh,
airport,
really?
and the
Okay.
and the housing in that area used to be kind of rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, Boston, Providence. Yeah, that's right. That's right through there.
I'm
so
looking at Twitter to see what some of the reactions are to the Virginia election. Because I wanted to see if Stacey Abrams, the Abramopotamus, had said anything, but no, weirdly silent. And if you look at the hashtag election results 2021, mostly it just talks about South Africa. But we've got this guy, Nazis won in Virginia.
Oh, eat shit, you prick. The Nazis were the Democrats in the Lincoln Project. The problem is that one of the Dem operatives for the McAuliffe campaign got recognized as one of the people's trying to flog the Tiki Torch story before it got revealed that it was a bunch of stooges from the Lincoln Project. I know. I love your new avatar. That's scary.
Yeah. My favorite mayor was reelected this time around. So
Jesus Christ.
yeah.
Interesting statistic, guys. Biden becomes the 8th consecutive new president to see the opposition party win the Virginia governorship in his first year. He is following Carter, Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Clinton, G.W. Bush, Obama, and Trump. This basically always happens. The Virginia governorship flips in the first year of a new president.
Isn't that
that's a weird resonance, isn't it?
It's like the old "as Maine goes, so goes the nation" back in the late 19th century.
Yeah.
It's that's very peculiar. I don't like living in a bellwether state. I prefer that we not be a battleground like that. One thing that this is interesting to see how quiet things might go among the Democrats as far as consolation that Terry receives. Terry is an old school Clintonista. He was the guy that was peddling the Lincoln bedroom for donations for the Clintons. He had his day. And it's one of the reasons what the Lincoln Project did was so boneheaded, because McAuliffe was governor when the Charlottesville rally took place.
Yes.
And he is the one that pulled the permit and canceled the rally that led to the street fighting.
People don't know that because that's never been publicized.
Yeah, but he said, no, we have to cancel it. And he did it at the 11th hour.
Yeah.
I mean, literally.
Exactly right.
It was like at 11:59 for a noon start. And the Charlottesville Police Department cleared the park. Well, when they cleared the park because they had set up barricades to separate the Antifa protester crowd from those people who were there to protest the removal of the Lee statue, as well as the hangers-on like Baked Alaska and all the other dipshits that came in from out of town, who had nothing to do with this. This was an Albemarle County, Charlottesville issue. And and a lot of activist twats in that new right latched on to it and made utter turds out of themselves that day. They were a disgrace. But so was Terry McAuliffe by being an anti-First Amendment prick that day. If he had just let the rally go on and CPD could have kept the two parties separated, that poor woman may not have been killed. Now, and we also might not have lost two state troopers and their pilot who were on their way there because all hell was breaking loose. Charlottesville was not prepared for what went on, and the governor pulling the plug did not help. But he skated from that because they took over the narrative of the good people on both sides thing. That whole lie that Scott Adams has talked about ad infinitum, and ad nauseum. The good people lie. What Trump said is the Nazis have no business being here. Those idiots, and the Antifa types, they have no business. But there were principled arguments on both sides about the removal of the statue. That's what all Trump was trying to get at. The fact that he was artless in his speech.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't going to be given any points for that. Of course, Obama saying that the Cambridge police acted stupidly about that old professor of his, when it turned out the professor acted stupidly and the Cambridge PD did nothing wrong.
Yep.
That was artless on Obama's part and reflexive race politics on his part. But he was able to just skate right past it because there's a D after his name and all the press vote for him.
It's interesting thing on the Virginia race. Voters in the exit poll told CNN and MSNBC that education was their number one priority, and that McAuliffe hurt himself with the parent comment.
He did. And especially he ran ads saying that's not what I said. And it's like, you lying sack of shit. He was being very lawyerly, because what Youngkin did went a little hyperbolic with what he said. Is that parents had no business being involved in the schools. That's not exactly what McAuliffe said. But that was what he meant. It was clear by his
Clear where his
dismissiveness.
sympathies were.
Correct.
Yeah.
But McAuliffe was too lawyerly about it. He should have shut up.
It sounds dishonest. It seemed dishonest. I agree with you. I think that really did hurt him.
He should have kept his mouth shut. It did not help that Biden came and campaigned for him.
Yeah. All right. Let me ask you.
Obama
this.
didn't help either. Oops.
Let me ask you this: Do you think New Yorkers are rejoicing that they have elected their second black mayor?
They might be, but I would have thought that the gloss would have worn off that. I mean, look, Dinkins didn't do anything horrible as mayor.
You said too many words. He didn't do anything.
Yeah, he didn't do anything. It was a good way to be, actually. New York needs more mayors.
Yeah.
But after Lindsay and now de Blasio, really, maybe the thing to do is to not do too much. It's what it was in that one of Reagan's things. One of the problems is the government wants to do things.
Okay. Hold on. I was looking for some stuff for you, Skep. So I was looking at MSNBC. Joy Reid, Terry McAuliffe lost white women in specific messaging war on race. And I was looking at the closed captioning, and it was coming up sounding complete gibberish. And I'm thinking, has YouTube lost the ability to translate Joy Reid into English? But I didn't realize that it's decided. YouTube seems to have decided that she's speaking Dutch. YouTube's the giant AI machine's like, this can't be English. What does it sound like? I don't know.
Well, there are people on Twitter saying that
that's funny.
MSNBC coverage was growing progressively more and more like Awake as time went on, and see, there was one other little interesting factor that occurred in this race. L. Douglas Wilder, former governor of Virginia, was highly critical of Terry McAuliffe because he mouthed all the proper words when the Northam pictures came out, the governor blackface pictures, but he was trying to get Northam to stump for him and trying to cling to his coattails a little bit toward the end. Mm-hmm. And Wilder was pointing that out, which wasn't helpful because, and Wilder's not a big race politics guy, but lesser people have resigned when pictures like Northam's have come out.
No kidding.
Okay.
Much lesser people.
I'm such a child. I just told YouTube to take what it thinks is Dutch and auto-translate it back into English. And now I'm reading what Joy Reid is saying, translated back into English. The slightly higher must go to my father's, zo dies nations is dem Jim, lightly hung with cornflower parrots, see that play typical for Democrat choose, drinking water the inhabitants of Mannheim, intro not many white with my Vaders, met 50%. This is amazing.
AI
This is
loses
amazing.
the plot. Oh, that's funny.
I'll put the link in the
Yeah,
chat so everybody can enjoy.
Yes, enjoy that. It's interesting. Somebody who I follow says, "I know none of this will shock you, but MSNBC and its esteemed co-host Rachel Maddow, Joy Reid, and Nicole Wallace have not mentioned that Winsome Sears will be the first female and woman of color lieutenant governor of Virginia, and Jason Mayaris will be the first Latino Virginia attorney general."
Yep.
So evidently, progress for minorities, it only counts if you're a Democrat.
Yes.
Okay.
Coconuts and Uncle Toms, or whatever they call, whatever names they assign to each other, aside, they don't count.
9 minutes ago, Sebastian Gorka tweeted out, "How do you think Nancy's doing?" I think Nancy's pretty deep in the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
How's New Jersey going? Anybody seen anything out of New
I
Jersey?
thought the Republican was ahead still.
He
but,
was barely ahead last I saw. It's just he was way too close for normal, if you know what I mean.
yeah.
Northam got 60%.
Okay. In New Jersey governor, the GOP guy, Jack, unpronounceable Italian name,
Chiarelli
has 50.5%. Philip Murphy, the Democrat, has 48.8% votes. They're not calling it yet, but it's basically 50.5 to 49.
And how much percent?
Very close.
82% in.
Wow.
Yeah, 82% are right.
That won't be all of Trenton will be a holdout. And once you get to like Edison and everywhere moving toward New York, I mean, the population's so dense.
Yeah.
But man,
just updated again. It's now 50.6% to 48.6. So the GOP guy just jumped a little bit farther ahead.
2-point spread. All the people on MSNBC convincing themselves that all of these Virginia voters who voted for Biden a year ago are racist idiots and or dupes. That's out of Jonah Goldberg. Huh. Surprising moment of clarity. Jonah's been having issues.
Jonah used to be a good writer. He's broken my heart.
Oh, MSNBC's apparently blaming Jews for Murphy lagging in New Jersey.
That's them Jews.
Well, that sounds normal.
Yeah, that's usual.
For MSNBC.
Anti-Semitic bullshit that you get from MSNBC. I hate those assholes.
Well, quit praising people for the knockout game and maybe you won't get those results.
There's that possibility.
Yeah, I mean, you keep turning a blind eye to some serious cultural issues underlying certain neighborhood politics in big cities like New York, and you are going to get blowback. It's like you get a former cop running for mayor.
Yeah.
That turns out to be your Democratic front runner,
right?
Is a former cop. It's a different character of individual, than your typical Democrat, because he's been a cop and he made police captain. Good God.
I know. It's not nothing.
No, it isn't, because that's a rough job in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's hilarious.
Geodz classic shoes. Bad man. Bad man.
A glass of
I'm
juice,
just
yeah.
being good and not digging into my collection of stuff. The only difference is I've been alive longer than Geodz, and that part of me that would think that Prostat is not going to let it happen.
All it says is a glass of juice.
Yeah.
Well,
there's nothing.
while we have been chortling, guys, we have flipped over the 2-hour mark. That means it's time for us to tootle off into dreamland. But I did want to thank everybody for coming out and listening to us. Chat, thank you for coming out. We do this for you. And thank you to my panel, Prospero, Geodz, Harry, who I'm proud to call friends as well. Thank you for spending 2 hours of your lives with me this evening. We're going to wrap it up for tonight. The Republicans triumphant in Virginia. Perhaps the light at the end of the tunnel is not a gorilla with a flashlight and a bad attitude. Let's hope that's the case. Anyway, for all of us here, good night, everybody, and good luck. The zoo is closed.
Good night.
Night.